Breaking! Nigel Farage just cornered Keir Starmer live on national television with one devastating question that the Prime Minister couldn't answer. Within 47 seconds, Starmer's face went from confident to panicked. Within 3 minutes, Labour MPs were texting each other in absolute horror. And what happened next has every political expert saying the same thing. This could be the beginning of the end for Starmer's government. The footage is spreading like wildfire across every platform. Millions have already watched the Prime Minister stumble, stammer, and completely fall apart. And if you want to understand how one single question just destroyed months of Labour spin, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to show you will shock you to your core. Here's what sparked the absolute chaos. Yesterday afternoon at 2:17 p.m, Farage walked into the BBC studio for what was supposed to be a routine political debate. His message was direct and brutal. Starmer's government has betrayed working people while protecting foreign criminals. But Starmer wasn't playing defence. The Prime Minister arrived with prepared talking points, rehearsed answers, media handlers whispering strategy in his ear. He thought he was ready. He thought he could handle Farage. He was catastrophically wrong. At exactly 2:34 p.m, with 4.2 million people watching live, Farage leaned forward and asked the question that changed everything. His exact words were chilling. "Prime Minister, 3 weeks ago your government released 1,700 foreign criminals onto British streets instead of deporting them. Yesterday, one of those men, Ahmed Khalil, was arrested for attempted murder in Birmingham. A 19-year-old British girl is fighting for her life in hospital. You had the power to deport him. You chose not to. So I have one simple question. Will you look into that camera right now and apologize to her family?" The studio went dead silent. You could hear the camera operators breathing. Starmer's face, confident just seconds before, transformed. His eyes darted to his notes. His mouth opened, but no words came out. For 7 excruciating seconds, the Prime Minister of Great Britain sat frozen on live television. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Well, Nigel, that's a very unfortunate situation, but we need to look at the broader context of our immigration system and the legal frameworks that govern deportation proceedings." Farage didn't let him finish. "That's not an answer. That's word salad. A girl is dying, and you're talking about legal frameworks. Yes or no? Will you apologize?" Starmer tried again, stumbling over every word. "I think what we need to understand is that there are complex considerations involving human rights legislation and—" Farage cut him off again. "Human rights for foreign criminals. What about her rights? What about British people's rights to be safe in their own country?" That's when it happened. Starmer completely lost composure. He raised his voice, pointed his finger at Farage, and shouted, "I will not be lectured about safety by someone who has never had to make these difficult decisions." The outburst was a disaster. Every political analyst immediately recognized what they were watching. A Prime Minister melting down on live television. Within minutes, the clip was trending globally. Within an hour, Labour headquarters was in full panic mode. But wait, because there's another layer to this that makes it so much worse. What nobody knew until sources leaked it last night was that Starmer's team had been warned this question was coming. 3 days before the debate, Farage's office sent the standard courtesy notice listing potential topics. Criminal deportation policy was right there at the top. Starmer's handlers had 72 hours to prepare an answer. They had 3 full days to craft a response that sounded compassionate but firm, that acknowledged the tragedy but defended the policy. Instead, they did nothing. Senior advisors told The Times they raised concerns in preparation meetings. They warned Starmer that Farage would use a specific case to attack him emotionally. They literally practiced this exact scenario in rehearsals. And Starmer dismissed it. He told his team, "Farage is all bluster. I can handle him with facts." That arrogance just cost him everything. When the moment came, when millions watched, when he needed those prepared answers, his mind went blank. The man who thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room proved he wasn't ready for the fight he picked. And here's what makes this even more damaging. Within 30 minutes of the debate ending, the victim's family released a statement through their solicitor. It was brief. It was devastating. "Our daughter Emma is fighting for her life because this government chose to protect her attacker instead of deporting him." The Prime Minister had 7 seconds of silence on television. We've had 3 weeks of silence. From Downing Street, no apology, no explanation, no accountability. We trusted Labour to keep us safe. They failed. That statement was read on BBC News, Sky News, and ITV within the hour. Social media exploded. Mothers across Britain shared it with trembling hands and furious hearts. The hashtag Emma Deserves Better hit 1.6 million tweets in 4 hours. Photos of Emma, a bright-faced teenager who dreamed of becoming a veterinary nurse, spread across every platform. Her family released hospital photos showing her in intensive care, tubes and machines keeping her alive. The images were heartbreaking and absolutely damning. Because every person looking at that girl knew the truth. Her government chose a foreign criminal's rights over her safety. And the man responsible just shouted at Nigel Farage on television instead of taking responsibility. Meanwhile, the British people who served their country for decades are watching this government abandon them in real time. James Peterson, a 71-year-old army veteran from Yorkshire, waited 9 months for a hip replacement surgery. 9 months of agony, barely able to walk, his savings drained, paying for painkillers. When his appointment finally came through, it was cancelled. The NHS told him they needed the operating theatre for emergency cases. Fair enough, he thought. Then he discovered the truth. That same hospital spent £340,000 housing asylum seekers in a nearby hotel, providing them with free healthcare, dental care, and mental health services. Meanwhile, James, who fought for Britain in Northern Ireland, who paid taxes for 50 years, sits at home in pain. His wife, Margaret, told reporters she found him crying in the kitchen last week. A decorated soldier reduced to tears because his own government treats him like he doesn't matter, while foreign nationals who just arrived get immediate care. The contrast is so stark, so cruel, that even lifelong Labour voters in Yorkshire are saying they can't defend this anymore. We're talking about a government that found £700 million for foreign aid increases but can't find money to clear the NHS waiting list. That claims there's no money for pensioners' heating allowances, but somehow discovered £8 billion for climate initiatives overseas. The injustice burns through communities that built this nation. And it's not just James. Across Britain, stories are emerging that paint a picture of systematic betrayal. In Cornwall, 4-year-old Mary Williams, a retired nurse who worked through COVID, risking her life daily, applied for council housing after her landlord sold her flat. She was told the waiting list was 18 months minimum. 2 weeks later, she walked past a council estate and saw removal vans unpacking furniture into homes that had been empty for months. She asked the council what was happening. They told her those properties were allocated to asylum seeker families under emergency housing provisions. Mary, who served the NHS for 40 years, who nursed dying COVID patients without adequate PPE, who paid her taxes and followed every rule, wasn't an emergency. But people who arrived last month were. She told the Daily Mail she felt invisible, like her decades of contribution meant nothing. In Newcastle, a working-class family of 5 was evicted from temporary accommodation because the council needed those units for migrant housing. They're now living with relatives in a 2-bedroom flat, 7 people crammed together. The father, David Collins, said his 2-year-old son asked him a question that broke his heart. "Dad, why don't they care about us?" What do you say to that? How do you explain to your child that his own government has decided other people matter more than he does? But then something happened that nobody saw coming. Something that turned a bad day for Starmer into an absolute catastrophe. At 4:15 p.m. yesterday, just hours after the debate disaster, King Charles made an unprecedented move. During a scheduled appearance at a veterans charity event in London, he broke 70 years of royal protocol. The king was supposed to make brief remarks, shake hands, and leave. Instead, he stayed for 45 minutes. He spoke personally with veterans. He listened to their stories about NHS delays, about feeling abandoned, about watching illegal immigrants receive benefits while they struggle. And then, surrounded by cameras, Charles said words that will echo through British history. Those who have given so much to this nation deserve to be treated with the dignity and priority their service has earned, the king declared, his voice thick with emotion. We must never forget who built this country and who defended it. Never. The implication was crystal clear to everyone watching. Charles wasn't just supporting veterans, he was rebuking the government. Palace insiders reveal that the king had personally intervened with Downing Street 3 times in recent weeks, asking them to prioritise veterans in NHS care. 3 times. Starmer's team dismissed his concerns as interference, so Charles took his message public. The optics are absolutely devastating for Labour. Britain's longest-serving monarch, a man who spent his entire life avoiding political controversy, felt compelled to publicly contradict government policy. Constitutional experts were stunned. Professor David Mitchell of Cambridge University told Sky News, "This is the most direct political intervention by a British monarch since George VI during World War II. The King is using his platform to signal that the government has lost its moral compass. He's not calling for Starmer's resignation, but he's making it clear the monarchy stands with the people Labour has abandoned." Royal biographer Sarah Bradford went further. "Charles has crossed the Rubicon. He's decided that remaining silent makes him complicit in injustice. This will be studied for generations as the moment the modern monarchy chose principle over protocol. And here's what makes this even more powerful. Charles didn't just speak, he acted." Before leaving the event, the King announced a new Royal Foundation initiative, £10 million from his personal duchy funds to support veterans facing NHS delays, to provide private medical care for those waiting in pain, to show Britain's heroes that someone still values their sacrifice. The announcement was met with standing ovations from veterans, tears from their families, and absolute horror from Downing Street, because the King just did what the government refused to do. He put British veterans first. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the Farage confrontation and royal rebuke triggered a cascade of disasters that Labour never imagined possible. Within 2 hours of the debate ending, the pound dropped against the dollar. Currency traders saw instability and reacted instantly. £2.4 billion wiped from the FTSE 100 inches afternoon trading. Within 4 hours, that loss had doubled to £4.8 billion. The Bank of England issued a rare evening statement expressing confidence in UK stability, which paradoxically made investors even more nervous. Why would they need to issue confidence statements unless confidence was collapsing? Inside the Labour Party, the fractures exploded into open warfare. Shadow cabinet members who spent months defending Starmer's immigration policies suddenly went silent. Transport Secretary Louise High, who just last week called Farage's concerns racist scaremongering, deleted her Twitter account entirely. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper cancelled 3 scheduled interviews. When reporters cornered her outside Parliament, she literally ran to her car without answering a single question. The cowardice was stunning. Polls conducted within hours showed catastrophic movement. Labour's lead over Reform UK, once a comfortable 18 points, had collapsed to just 4 points. In red wall constituencies that Labour reclaimed from Conservatives, Reform UK was now ahead by margins of 6 to 8 points. Hashtags like Stop the Invasion and Starmer Out were trending in the UK for 7 straight hours, generating 2.8 million tweets. Street protests erupted in Birmingham, where the attack happened, with crowds demanding government accountability. Over 3,000 people marched to the city centre, chanting Farage's name. These weren't Conservative activists. These were ordinary Britons, many of them traditional Labour voters, who felt betrayed and abandoned by their own government. Inside Labour headquarters on Victoria Street, the atmosphere has gone from tense to absolutely toxic. Ministers are turning on each other. Staffers describe shouting matches behind closed doors. Angela Rayner, Starmer's deputy, was overheard saying the Prime Minister isn't listening to anyone anymore and has surrounded himself with yes-men who don't understand working-class Britain. Chancellor Rachel Reeves allegedly stormed out of a meeting after Starmer rejected her advice to immediately announce new deportation measures. She was seen in the Commons tea room an hour later, sitting with backbenchers, taking notes. Political veterans recognise that behaviour. She's not supporting her leader. She's counting votes for a leadership challenge. WhatsApp groups with names like Real Labour and Save the Party are coordinating behind Starmer's back. Over 40 Labour MPs have joined these secret channels. They're not discussing policy anymore. They're discussing timing. How long before they move against him? Whether waiting makes the damage worse. If Rayner can win a confidence vote. The question isn't if they'll remove Starmer from power, it's when. Senior MP John Ashworth was caught on a hot mic telling a colleague, "He's finished. We're just deciding whether to let him bleed out slowly or finish it quickly." That audio leaked to the Telegraph within 3 hours. Starmer knows he's surrounded by traitors. Sources say he looks exhausted, paranoid, isolated in number 10. He's stopped trusting his own cabinet. He's demanding loyalty pledges from ministers. The behaviour of a leader who knows his time is running out. But here's the part that could end not just Starmer's career but Labour's entire government. What hasn't been reported yet by mainstream media. According to leaked documents obtained by multiple sources, the Home Office has been systematically refusing deportations based on guidance that directly contradicts public statements. Internal emails show officials were told to prioritize compassionate considerations over public safety in removal decisions. One email, dated March 15th and sent from a senior Home Office official to regional directors, explicitly states, in cases where deportation eligibility is borderline, err on the side of allowing the individual to remain. Minister has made clear that optics of deportation flights matter more than raw numbers. If these documents are real, and if they show what 3 separate sources claim, then Starmer didn't just make a mistake with Ahmed Khalil's case. He created a policy that deliberately kept dangerous criminals in Britain. Think about what that means. The Prime Minister stood in Parliament and told British people his government was tough on criminal deportations. Behind the scenes, his Home Office was blocking those deportations. He lied, deliberately, repeatedly, about public safety. The documents allegedly show at least 47 cases where officials recommended deportation and were overruled by political appointees. Cases involving assault, drug trafficking, sexual offences, and violent crime. Criminals who should have been removed immediately were allowed to stay because removing them would generate negative headlines about deportation flights. If that's proven true, if families of victims discover their loved ones were hurt by criminals Labour chose to protect for political reasons, the outrage will be unlike anything British politics has ever seen. The optics of that would be absolutely devastating. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is doing exactly what great political strategists do, staying calm while his opponents destroy themselves. While Starmer panics and Labour plots, Farage held a rally in Birmingham last night. Over 5,000 people showed up, the largest Reform UK event in history. He didn't attack. He didn't mock. He simply spoke truth. The British people deserve a government that puts them first, he said to thunderous applause. Not last. Not after illegal immigrants. Not after EU bureaucrats. Not after foreign criminals. First. The message resonated because it's exactly what millions are thinking, but mainstream politicians won't say. The crowd wasn't angry. They were hopeful. Hopeful that finally someone understands them. Farage introduced 3 families on stage. Veterans denied medical care. Working families denied housing. Victims of crimes committed by people who should have been deported. Each told their story. Each received standing ovations. Each made Labour's betrayal undeniable. For the first time in modern British history, Farage isn't the protest candidate anymore. He's the alternative. He's the future. The polls confirm the earthquake. Latest numbers show Conservatives at 29%, Labour collapsing to 23%, and Reform UK surging to 26%. A 3-way race for the first time ever. If an election happened today, no party would have a majority. Coalition government, hung parliament, complete political chaos. And leading that chaos, the man everyone underestimated, Nigel Farage. The next 72 hours are absolutely critical for Britain's future. Reform UK has called for an emergency parliamentary debate on deportation policy. Labour is trying to block it, but backbench Conservatives are threatening to support the motion. If it passes, Starmer will be forced to stand in Commons and defend the indefensible while families of victims watch from the gallery. Multiple sources confirm that senior Labour MPs are meeting this weekend to discuss Starmer's future. Angela Rayner has cleared her schedule. Rachel Reeves has cancelled a European finance summit. They're not preparing to support him. They're preparing to replace him. Buckingham Palace has announced King Charles will deliver an unscheduled address to the nation next Tuesday. The topic hasn't been announced, but palace insiders say it concerns national unity and shared values. Translation: Charles is preparing to remind Britain what leadership actually looks like, making Starmer look even weaker by contrast. The King's team has been coordinating with veteran organisations and family advocacy groups. Sources say the address will include policy recommendations, something no modern monarch has attempted. Charles is preparing to use his constitutional influence in ways that will redefine the monarchy's role. This isn't a political scandal anymore. This is a constitutional crisis in slow motion. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, who looks increasingly like a prime minister living on borrowed time, who bet everything on immigration policy the British people rejected, who thought he could ignore voters and face no consequences. He was wrong. So here's the question that matters. Did Starmer just end his own career with one disastrous debate performance? Or can Labour somehow recover from this absolute catastrophe? Will Nigel Farage become Britain's next Prime Minister? And will King Charles use his constitutional powers to force political change? What do you think happens next? Does Starmer survive the weekend, or is his government finished? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Westminster right now. The mainstream media won't tell you the full truth, but we will. Subscribe because tomorrow we're revealing the leaked documents that prove Labour has been lying about deportations for months. The next chapter could bring down the entire government,